with casting pearls amongst the swine. 'Cause each of us is running out of time. It's already started silent, you won't hear a chime. You'll be measured and punished for each heavenly crime.
Good evening and welcome to the Belfast Bapcast. Tonight we are joined by Crow777, independent researcher and host of Crow777 Radio. For over a decade, Crow has quietly documenting anomalies in our shared reality, from timekeeping and astronomy to media narratives and cultural conditioning. What sets his work apart isn't volume or outrage, it's discipline, careful sourcing, first-hand observation, and a refusal to speculate beyond what can be demonstrated. This isn't about belief, it's about inquiry. And Crow, I would like to welcome you to the Belfast Bapcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Ian. Appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure. So I believe you have some media to go through with us today.
Yeah, we do. Rose is backstage. She's going to queue up some of the work that I've been doing on my hydrogen alpha solar telescope. It's a 133 millimeter scope that films in the hydrogen alpha wavelength. That wavelength is just inside visible wavelengths on the red side of the spectrum, but we really can't see this with our eyes because of all the other frequencies coming in and the brightness and the energy. So what my scope does is it allows me to block out all the wavelengths and brightness that would interfere with views like this. And it's really quite a privilege. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, amateurs pretty much couldn't get the views that you're seeing here. And what you're seeing is the limb of the sun, and those are prominences that look like fire. They're called prominences. You see the little white one down on the face of the sun there. That's actually a prominence called a filament, but it's just in a different view. Are you familiar with any of the work that I've been doing here?
I haven't seen this at all. This is fantastic looking, yeah.
So recently, I caught a solar wave. I kind of was thrust into the world stage when I filmed the lunar, so-called lunar wave, I don't know, 2012, I think it was.
Yeah.
And just the other day, the last times this year I was able to shoot because of weather, I caught a solar wave, which is posted at Crow777radio.com for my membership. But here you're seeing how it comes out of the camera. I shoot in black and white because that captures the most data. So everything you see here is real except for color. I choose the color. That's the only added thing.
Okay.
Actually, this is a demonstration of how a still is turned into what I present. When it first comes out of the camera, you can't really see the prominences, but the data is there. So I use a curves tool, which is similar to what you're seeing here with color, and I bring up the levels that contain the data with the prominences, and then you get the full-on view. This is a close-up of the surface in hydrogen alpha. The image has been inverted to show the 3D nature of what we're looking at. That's why the sunspots are white and not black, and that is a typical tool so that you can see more detail. And I offer these stills on my website. When I started showing them, people wanted to print them. So there's a ton of stills on the website, and I made them so that you can print them up to about 50 inches or so, or anything less. This is an animated shot of the proms. The one previous was sunspots.
Yeah. It looks so alive, doesn't it? That's...
In my view, it is alive. In my view, it is conscious. I don't know how we could imagine that it maintains, supports, and maybe even provides life down here. If it didn't have consciousness and life itself, how could it do those things? This is an extreme close-up of a sunspot.
Wow. It looks like something you'd see inside the human body.
I get that all the time. It does. It looks like tissue. Some of the shots look like human tissue.
The detail of that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really an honor to be able to have tools that can do this. I saved for 10 years to get to this level. The scope that I ended up getting was from Lunt, and I met the guys there, and they told me only three, the size that I have been sold in North America. But when you get a solar scope of that size, you really have to have good weather and good seeing, or it's amplified in the wrong direction if you don't. So it's a challenge, to say the
Yeah,
least. But when everything's right, I mean, look what we get.
it's worth the struggle. I'm sure that's unbelievable.
That's how I view it. You know, some days you put in many hours for very little, and other days it's just amazing.
And would you
The
have it on like a time lapse sort of thing whenever the weather's good, or do you have to constantly man it? Or
So the way I do it is when the weather's right, I set up outside. I set everything up, do everything, and then I remote it into my office, all the controls. And so if I'm doing stills, what I do is I capture a video with about, I don't know, say 500 to 1,000 frames. Then I take the best 10% or so and stack it down into a single still. If I'm doing what I call the animations, where you see the movement, basically I film for 30 seconds, the camera turns off for about 15, 20, maybe even 30 seconds. Then it captures another 500 frames. I do this over 4 hours if I can. And then all those videos often weigh near a terabyte. That's why a lot of people don't do this. So
yeah,
with all that data, I do the exact same thing. In each of those hundreds of videos that I've shot over 4 hours, I take the top maybe 10% of the best frames out of each video, stack it down to a still. Then I have hundreds of stills, and I process the stills in the same way that I process these stills that you're looking at, and I put them in a video timeline where I can speed it up so that you can really appreciate the movement. Because most of the time, you don't see a lot of movement with the naked eye, although you can. I have filmed what's called a CME, a coronal mass injection, that I actually saw in real time. The whole thing occurred in just a couple minutes, but that's pretty rare.
So you said there almost a terabyte of information with one session. So what sort of computing setup do you have for all that processing?
Well, luckily, one of my best friends in the world builds things and systems and networks. So I have a very quick 32 core computer that he built for me so I could afford it. But the main thing is storage space. So I
Yeah,
basically have, I don't know,
data center.
probably, yeah, probably 1,000 terabytes of storage, something like that.
That's intense. Yeah,
And then you have to run the backups across it all. It's a lot of work. There's an
it's
animated sunspot.
yeah. I just seen that. It's just like it's like an organism. Like there's no other way of.
What's trippy,
Yeah.
run that a few times back to back, that sunspot,
And
Rose, the
then what's that
animated one.
there? Yeah, it was,
So if you look down the hole, you can see little points of light. So at the end of all those little foculi, those little tentacle looking things,
yeah, yeah.
they go down that hole. And when you do get a chance to get a good view, you can see them arcing and sparking. And that's one thing I really want to work on capturing, is a good view down into a sunspot.
That's
This is shot in the
unbelievable.
G band, what's called the G band. It's kind of amazing when you change the wavelength just slightly, it really changes the view. This view is in what's called the G band, which is a little bit different than what all the stills. This is a slightly different wavelength that you're looking at here.
So what's that there? That just happened. Yeah, that's the
That's the
image.
CME that I saw in real time. The whole thing occurred in a couple minutes, and I just was fortunate enough to be filming, and I got it. And so I sped it up about 500 times so you can really see it. These are just a litany of stills. When I first started showing them, people just really wanted to get them and make prints. And I've seen
I was
some
going to say you
astonishing
can see why people would want them, especially like a metal print or something. It'd be pretty
They
cool. Like,
do. Yeah. They've done it on like PVC, the plastic print they do. They've done it on glass. They print them on all kinds of things. One guy even printed it on like a canvas. It was just, I don't know, 4 feet wide, maybe.
that's another one of those. Just
Yeah,
looks like
that's,
cute tissue as well again.
yeah, that's the sunspot. So anyhow, that's about what I have on offer. I don't think we have anything else. Do we, Rose? Do we have anything else that we can show?
Just keep the images up anyway. They're trippy to look at in the meantime. So obviously that's not just all the work you do. You would do quite a lot on symbology and stuff as well. What have you been looking into recently apart from this?
Well, we just did an astonishing show on schizophrenia. And
Okay.
it was quite incredible because the person we were talking to does not share the mainstream view. And by the way, I should tell you that his name is 𝐸𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞, and I would recommend people go check him out. But he does not accept that it's a chemical imbalance in the head, nor does he accept treating it with chemical drugs as the way to go. And as we talked, the more we learned about it, we found out a lot of things. It's always negative. It's like a spiritual attack. But I have been doing side work on what's called an egregore. Are you familiar with egregores at all?
I'm not, no.
So it's whenever, I'm sure you're familiar with the scripture where it says, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, I am there.
Yes, 100%.
If you take that out of the spiritual context into the real world, that's what's going on. When people share thought, like let's say Uncle Sam would be a perfect egregore because so many people are invested in it and thinking about it. There was recently a show in America called American Gods, and I use that as the example. Basically, Odin or Wednesday and all the other small g gods, those are egregores created by human thought and consciousness. And I began to draw the lines between what we were learning about schizophrenia and the show that we're going to do for episode 666. Of course, when a number comes up like that, you're going to have to put something together or people will hem and haw. So we've got Wayne McCroy, and we covered the egregore, and it's really quite a show. I think we're about to put out 662 and 663. It's a two-part episode that Jason put together on Edward Bernays, and then we'll have one more show and then episode 666.
Edward Bernays was an interesting character. He was the father of advertising.
Yeah, social engineering. You know, he took marketing into the social engineering realm, and he changed the world. Here's the original lunar wave footage, by the way. There goes the wave up the top. There's another one coming from the bottom here.
It almost looks holographic, doesn't it?
It does. It has that kind of feel to it, but it's not specific to the moon. It's been filmed in front of Jupiter and Saturn now.
Yeah.
When I published this in the fall of 2013, I think it was October 13, 2013, I published this, and all hell broke loose. It was unbelievable what happened after I posted that clip, to include the launch of the Flat Earth movement 30 days later, all of them referencing the lunar work I'd been doing and the lunar wave. It was quite a thing. I had to change all my telephone numbers. I had to change everything. It just
death threats, no doubt.
Oh, everything, just everything. Ex-NASA employees, threats, just everything. It was unbelievable.
I mean, how can NASA at this point still believe their own? You know, I know it's compartmentalized, but surely you have to have almost brain rot to work there and not know something is amiss.
It's astonishing. You know, one thing COVID taught me in spades, I was already aware of it, but sometimes the most educated people among us are the most stuck in the paradigms that we've been handed.
They fully rely on the systems that we've been given.
They're invested in it. You know, some of them have 8 years of school that they're still paying on. They are very invested in it. I had a heart surgeon that used to live near me, and he wasn't, you know, they asked if I was going to, I was taking care of my mother. She was dying. And both of the neighbors were medical professionals. And they came over and said, when were we getting our COVID shots? And I said, I'm not getting that poison, and neither is my mother. And that was the last time they ever talked to me.
Yeah, it was clearly a social play as well, like social engineering wise, because like it divided friendships, it divided families, it divided.
Yep.
It done its work, and it wasn't like it's the main event. It was the precursor to something bigger. It was the test phase to see just how far along humanity is and how manipulated or how easily manipulated they are. And clearly, by the way people got on during COVID, we're very far along. So I would be expecting another event very soon.
Yeah, it'll be, I've often wondered if they try to pull something similar to this again, did enough people wake up? Because I think a lot of people did wake up. But the unfortunate truth is we lost a lot of people. Jason and I did a show a couple years ago where I made the claim that world population, and this isn't just a claim, this is backed up by research. And by the way, Daniel Estulin, in his book on Tavistock, is the only other person I know who did research and showed numbers to show world population falling since at least the 70s in the developed world. And I think there are far less people than we have been told. And I saw a movie not too long ago that was new, and twice, we've been told there was close to 400 million people in America for a long time. Then that number started going down slightly, but it was 300 million, near 400 million. But I saw a movie recently where an offhand comment was made, well, you're going to affect the other 200 million people that live in this country. And I thought that was a telling thing. Places like Japan might not even exist in 20 years.
Yes, with the birth rates and the sperm counts, etc.
Yeah. You need 2.5 in the research I did to replace death. And they've been below it for a long time. We're below it, supposedly, now.
Well, I've seen numbers like for world population, obviously not official, but just estimates of like even under 2 billion. It's
for the whole world.
Yeah, for the whole world.
I think that's closer than the whatever they're claiming, 6 or 7.
They claim 78 billion, yeah. And even at that, the numbers they claim, they say like we're devouring the planet, but you could give every person an acre of land in Texas, I think is the mathematics or something with the current numbers. You could get every person an acre of land and they could homestead, etc. But
yeah, the scarcity argument is ridiculous beyond belief. And so is the climate change argument to me. Like when you take a plane in America from coast to coast, it's a day's flight. Most of the time it's going to take you most of the day to do that, 8 hours or something, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
But what you notice is once you get away from the cities and you're in the air, it is mile after mile after mile after mile of open land. And I know people to this day who have an acre or two, and they say they make enough food that they could feed 8 or 10 families without blinking.
Yeah, the scarcity argument is entirely imposed. Like all these the food networks, etc., are like the scarcity is created. In my belief, there's more than enough to go around. But
one of the things that was really shocking about what happened during COVID is it demonstrated how easily society could be manipulated into policing itself, a little bit like the brown shirts in Nazi Germany, or what the kids did during the Chinese Revolution, where the kids became the police force, ratting out all the adults.
Yeah.
I had people that I knew and places that I went that were acting as if they were law enforcement. You can't come in here if you don't cover your spirit. Your breath is your spirit.
And the problem is you're just supposed to forget that all those interactions happened. Even though you've been largely, like I was exactly the same as yourself. I didn't believe any of the bullshit. And I was treated like an asshole in different businesses and because I didn't comply to the ridiculous rules. And, I just took it on the chin. People were afraid, whatever, but where's the apologies? Where's the correction of behaviors?
What I see is shame. I don't see apologies. I see shame and regret.
Yeah, but that should automatically lead into a bit of accountability, but it doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately. I mean, some of the politicians who were in power around that time are like spoke about as if they're heroes,
Well, where did Fauci go? Where's Fauci now? Last I heard, he's going to court, or we're going to take some nonsense other story about him. But where is he now? Was he even a real person, or was that just a character that was put on the world stage to do what was done?
Yeah, well, sure, he was rolled out over the HIV as well, so he seems to just be rolled out during controlled health crisis.
Well, he had a history. I think it even went back through AIDS or something like that. I forget at the time.
Yeah, it was something to do with the HIV spread of HIV, and then he had links to the Wuhan lab where this supposedly leaked from, if there ever even was an actual virus.
One of these days in America, significant number of the population will finally catch on to what our government is and what Hollywood is, and the fact that they're both sleeping in the same bed.
The fact that Trump has been able to pull the wool over so many what were once good thinking Americans is beyond belief. Just that thinking that a billionaire is the man of the people when he's the man of Israel, really.
He was a reality TV star who wanted to trademark the words "you're fired."
Yeah.
There's your man of the people. And these guys are all actors. Back in a time long ago, actors were not allowed to hold important positions, and they were looked down on because they were known to be duplicitous, two-faced. And if you look at the word actor all the way back to the original forms in Greek, you'll realize it's where we get the word hypocrite, Hippocrates, or something like that. And in the 80s, this country knowingly elected a Hollywood actor to the highest seat, we are told, in Ronald Reagan. And that is a tragedy. Knowingly put an actor in that position. And someday they're going to catch on that we have never seen a president that isn't an actor, that isn't wearing a costume.
The problem with Trump, though, is he's been programmed into us for years. If you look at the Back to the Future films where Biff... I think it was Back to the Future 2 where Biff he had the Biff powers.
Yep.
And it was pretty much Trump.
Yeah.
Pre-programming him for running. I think he was running the city at that stage, but clearly it was the symbolism because it was 88 and Trump's all encoded with 88. He has Apollyon all over his ceiling in his New York penthouse, and everything's there for people to see. They just don't want to open their eyes.
Well, 9/11 is endlessly pre-echoed 20 whatever some odd years before it happened in that film. There's a major portion of that film that is specifically echoing the events that will take place in 9/11, much like the album cover Breakfast in America from Supertramp. The album cover is pre-echoing. You got little Libby there, the waitress, making fun of the Statue of Liberty with a glass of orange juice in her hand, which is all symbolic. And if you take the back album and look at it in a mirror, it even says 9/11 in the title. And there's a mock-up for Breakfast, Break the Fast, of New York City on the album. The previous album was Crime of the Century, by the way.
From the outside looking into America, it almost all seems like one big film. They can even take the Charlie Kirk assassination and the Trump attempted assassination. Like, I don't believe either of those are actual real.
No, it's Hollywood gone mainstream or into news media. However you want to frame it, it's all fake. It's all staged. And you have in this country, maybe not so much anymore, but I don't really know because I do not read papers and I do not watch news. I won't have that skit be a part of my life.
I'm exactly the same.
A shooting every 3 days, it's beyond ridiculous. And because they put the fear behind it that people were injured or however they frame it, everyone's afraid to stand up against it on the off chance that maybe that's true. And it's not true.
Would you agree
Go ahead.
Would you agree that every sort of good empire seems to start slipping and falling when, morality is removed and men stop being men?
Yeah, my friend Fortune said historically there's never been an empire or a powerful nation that didn't fall once hedonism was introduced.
Yeah. And it's, the morality has completely gone out of society. Like COVID showed this as well. I mean, people were, as you say, willing to report on each other, but it was the viciousness and the violence within which they were willing to judge their fellow human.
And
Um,
now
we,
the gender thing as well. If you want to talk about hedonism, they've turned gender into a thing like the race card. So they play the race card decade after decade, and they get results every time. Well, now gender is right up there with race and abortion and politics as a card they can play to get the reaction they want every time. But in messing with gender, you are dismantling the foundations of what is true. And
yeah.
what is true can only be reckoned by nature. If you can't find truth in nature, it does not exist. And
Well,
what they've
once you
done here is
stop,
taken the building blocks of life and decided that you can decide it's not what it is.
yeah, we're clearly living in a time now where we're told to not believe what our ears are hearing or see what our eyes are seeing. Reality is subjective, and I feel sorry for the people who are caught up with these, psychological operations like the whole gender thing. I ideologically disagree with their point on it, but I feel sorry for them also because they don't have the discernment or whatever to make a decision because maybe it's came at them too young. The programming is came very young for them or whatever. But it's just horrendous. Like it's leaving so many, like the levels of suicide in that community are through the roof.
Well, it's what they're doing has worked at certain levels. When you see people who are maybe under 30 now, it's almost rare to see someone at that age planning to get married and have a family. It's just not happening. As a matter of fact, dating in general, as I knew it when I was coming up, doesn't really exist in the same way that it once did. Things are very, very different now. And the gender psychological operation plays into that and leverages and seeds confusion. When you add that to what's happened in the schooling and everything else, we've got some young generations who know very, very little about even the systems. When I was coming up, you were taught how to get along in the system. You weren't taught anything about the system. You were taught how to get along so you could be a good worker. Well, even that is gone. We've got young people that can't read handwriting. They
Can't even write.
No, if they didn't have their calculator on their phone, they couldn't make change for somebody buying something. You see them interviewed on the street and they don't know what a continent is, how many states there are, how many letters are in the alphabet, just very basic things that I learned when I was in grade school.
Yeah.
Those things were taken off the table for them. And then the older generation makes fun of them, which is equally as they're equally as guilty for doing so, because it's the older generation's job to teach the younger generation. So if you see someone who doesn't know how many states there are, inform them how many states there are.
Correct.
Instead of making a video and making fun of them to get clicks. And this is where we are right now.
The state of modern society is terrible, and like from a macro point of view, I believe it's all to do with the destruction of family, to destroy normality, basically.
Yeah.
And it started with the introduction of social welfare. Once everything is sold to us as an inversion, our healthcare system is actually a death care system. Our welfare system is actually promoting single parenthood, incentivizes splitting the family, whereas before we would have relied on community and family, and it's taken away identity, it's taken away culture, it's taken away everything, and it's been an incremental thing from the introduction of social welfare right through to the gender ideology, and it's all in one one big macro picture, in my opinion, and it's all incremental, and it's all to subvert normality and reality.
Yeah, all of that is true. But on the upside, and there is an upside, and the old cliche, it's the darkest before the dawn, probably has some bearing in the conversation you and I are having right now.
Yeah.
I notice so many young people being born with abilities that their parents never had and never will have, couldn't have if they would have tried their whole life. And we see people all over the place. You could do things like remote view, who have some level of clairvoyance. We see the human spirit rising. It's almost like when you take COVID and all the terrible things that have happened, is it was weeding out those that were going to fall for it, because those that are left, for obvious reasons, will be the ones who didn't fall for it. And it is my point of view that the emerging era that we're heading into now is why the power places were doing everything. They knew the new era was coming. They're trying to get their way as we go into the new era, which is iron-fisted control, policed by AI and technology. But
it'll be like Hunger Games, basically.
Right. But the new era, in my view, from everything I've looked at from ancient cultures forward, this era is going to be about service to others. And I have lived my entire life in a system that is service to self. And this is all coming apart now, to include the money systems and every other low vibrational thing that came with it. That's all going away now. Now, when we get into the new era and we start to get in line with the spirit of service to others, this will be an infinitely improved place to be. How long it takes, I don't know. And how many of us make it there, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It can't not be a net positive to live in servitude to others. And I don't mean that from like break your back point of view, but if everyone's working to help their fellow human, how can we be living in a bad world? We have came to like a post-truth society where you can't have disagreement and still be friends with somebody. If you disagree with somebody, they intentionally think you want to non-person them. They think that you don't want them to exist. It's like disagreement is no longer allowed to just exist and be present without it apparently leading to wanting erasure of the opponent. Whereas it's not a game; it's just a difference of opinion. It's people are not able to just agree to disagree at all anymore. Everything's so divided and so intense.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time at Crow777 Radio trying to be a beacon of hope in the direction you're talking. When I was young in school, we had a thing called debate. And what debate was is two people took opposite sides of a topic and each one worked to defend it. But when you were in school, when I was, they would find out which people were for or against, and then they would force them to take the other side. And in my generation, the way we got new improved things was by two people with different points of view debating it, comparing, doing these things. And it's gotten so bad that I have even had to change language. I want to talk about what we call space. But if I say astrology, all the astronomers split, they leave. If I say astronomy, all the astrologers leave. So I invented the word sky clock to try to bridge the gap so that everyone can sit in the same room and have an intelligent conversation and hopefully learn from each other. And I find myself looking for ways to modify the language that I'm familiar with so that I can talk without having doors slammed.
Yeah, and I feel it's very important to exercise the change that you want to see in the world as well. It's one thing pointing out where things are going wrong in the world, but if you're not actively doing anything in your own sphere to change that, then you're not really in a position to beat your chest in public. And I think it's fantastic that you try and have debate, because it's a lost art, and it's making a comeback on YouTube, but in a vicious way. You know what I mean? It's not two people having well-informed discussion. It's one person completely trashing the other person. It's kind of counterproductive.
So Rose found an astonishing clip. She's going to play it here. What it is back when I was trying to convince people that chemtrails were real and no one was having any of it, I accidentally filmed what's called an orb shooting like a plasma beam into the chemtrail, and this is that footage. It was heavily censored on YouTube, and it only has 1 million views after 10 years. There's the orb. Looks like a ball of light. I never saw or filmed an orb that wasn't near chemtrails back then. And we saw them all the time up till I posted this video, and then we no longer saw them all the time.
So you think it was maybe like a chemical reaction or something? Or
it's the most vexing thing. I mean, how do you even describe what we're seeing here? There's a ball of light going into a man-made chemtrail. He's going to fly against the wind. The chemtrail is pushing to the left of the frame. He flies to the right. Now, if you're on a cell phone, you're not going to see anything. But if you're on a normal size monitor, here in a second, I'll tell you when, right about here, very close to here. Where is it? Right here. It broke up. You got to run it again.
Yeah.
So hopefully the stream will allow it. But if you focus in, 2 little plasma beams are fired from that thing.
I mean, even if you look at all the Tartaria researchers and stuff, and the stuff that they've unearthed about the old buildings and stuff, it's clear that there's far more technology to hand than we've ever been allowed to know. It's like almost just been a slow release.
Oh, certainly. They can't allow you to know that there were past cultures that were way ahead, even where we are. And I'm talking even way ancient cultures that could do things like carve a whole temple out of a solid rock, or move a rock apparently of any weight.
Or lighthouses.
There it is. You can see it in the inverted shot. You can see the shot.
Yeah.
She'll play the inverted one again, and you'll be able to see the plasma shot. Okay, here it comes. Right there.
Yeah,
see it?
Yeah.
He actually fires twice there. I mean, but how do you even describe what we're looking at here? What could that possibly be?
It's certainly something we have not been exposed to anyway. It has its own independent trajectory, and then it fires something.
The orbs look like a ball of plasma or light or something like that. There it is. You can see it right there.
What would your thoughts be on it being like a spiritual being, maybe?
Could be. It's firing into the chemtrail. And as I said, we used to see them with our naked eyes all the time. Around the time I posted this video, we stopped seeing them. And it's been that way ever since. But what would it be doing? Neutralizing, or is it shooting at something, or is it hitting the chemicals in the chemtrail? I don't know.
It's so prominent, you can't really deny it. You know what I mean?
It is what it is. We may not have good language and concepts to describe it, but we do have footage of it.
That was mad. Going back to what we were talking about, I think a big problem overall is sobriety for people. Everyone is numbing themselves to such a degree now that their prefrontal cortex is
with the help of the state. The state is pushing. If you want to get high, they're doing everything they can to help you, except cigarettes. The year before COVID, in the state I'm in, Rhode Island, by the way, you could smoke in a restaurant in the state of Rhode Island up until damn near the year 2000. Okay.
Yeah.
Very permissive state in that manner. They started running campaigns in the state in 2019 where next generation, no one will smoke. It used to be 30-some% or 40-some%, and now it's less than 5%. And pretty soon we're going to have a generation that doesn't smoke. Well, we know they're trying to reduce the population. So why are they trying to take cigarettes away? You'd think they'd be handing them out like, lollipops or something. But what we learned is that the body has nicotine receptors all over it. And something about the nicotine seems to interfere with one of the things vaccine. They're doing. The other thing they've done is darn near once a month, they raise the price of cigarettes here. In the state of Rhode Island, a pack of cigarettes, high quality cigarettes, is roughly $15 to $17.
That's 20 UK pounds over here, which would be about $25, $30.
Yeah, there's something about that. I never realized before I did certain I knew there were THC receptors all over the body. And I knew places like the so-called American Indians grew tobacco for spiritual reasons, but I never knew that there were nicotoid or nicotine receptors all over the body. And there are legit spiritual uses, which are hard for us to think about because of how nicotine's been used.
Well, you can still get raw tobacco. It is still something that you can buy. It's quite difficult to get, but there's specialized websites you can get it. I don't personally.
I got some from David Avocado Wolf. He grew he obtained seeds from a pure old school strain, and he was growing it. And he sent me some of that.
And what is it like in comparison to the?
Well, I smoked it in a pipe, and I don't do it really. I haven't even touched it in a long time now, but it's nice. It's smooth. It smells nice.
I got a pipe just before Christmas, and my wife, I think, thought I completely cracked.
Do you use it?
I have, yes. I have been using it. It's different. It's a very different experience of smoking. Like
some of the pipe tobaccos and the real good tobaccos that aren't just like corporate chemical factory tobacco, like raw real tobacco, it just smells so old school good.
Yeah, like it reminds you of places. It reminds you of time. Yeah, like it reminds me of like my uncle used to smoke a pipe, so the smell instantly brings me back to certain things.
Yeah. And you have the ones where like they smoked it in cherry wood and things like that, and it really it smells better from outside than it does using it from my point of view. Like if I walk into a room and someone's doing it, that smells pretty good, but if you smoke it, it's not the same experience.
No. Well, ultimately I would like to give up smoking for the health, but like for lung point of view, but I've been smoking since like 14, so
yeah,
it's a long time.
Patches work.
Yeah, so I'm recently, tomorrow I'll be 40 days sober from alcohol and all other
congratulations
chemically altering things, and the clarity that has came with that has been shocking. I didn't realize how much I'd numbed, even though I would have been very awake and very on the ball with stuff that was going on institutionally and conspiratorially. I, in my own personal life, was so shut down emotionally with the state's drugs. You know what I mean?
Alcohol, in my view, is the most damaging because first of all, it's socially acceptable. Secondarily, you can get it anywhere, and we don't really recognize it for what it is. People go into liquor stores all the time and they see the bottles that says spirits on them, but they don't comprehend what that means. In the old world, natural sciences broke down everything in the world using the old philosophical scheme of body, soul, and spirit. And everything could be classified or broken down in this way. Well, the spirit of a plant is methyl or ethyl alcohol. So that alcohol is what's in the liquor store, and it is the old school spirit. And I was lucky in my life. I grew up where crystal meth was introduced in the East County of San Diego. The 𝐬𝐿's Angels, and Lord knows helped by who, I don't know, because most bikers are chemists. But when I came up, drugs weren't even a question. It was part of the culture. If you didn't do drugs, you were outside of the culture. So it was rare where I was. But for some reason, I always recognized alcohol for what it was. So knock on wood, I was so fortunate. Even when I went in the Marine Corps, I saw a lot of people getting tied up in alcohol and getting into trouble.
It just destroys
Just
families.
wasn't for me.
Like drugs obviously are bad in their own right, but alcohol is a different demon altogether. And alcohol wasn't even really my main problem. It was only something that came along near the end, but it's just so destructive. An alcoholic will do anything for a drink. Literally, I've seen some
any drug.
friends.
Yeah,
It's insane. But alcohol's just on a different level altogether. In rehab units, drug addicts will sort of almost look down at the alcoholics because of what levels they will go to for their addiction.
One of the group of kids I grew up with, two of them, one of them left on the winter solstice of 2016. He drank himself to death. He had gotten off drugs. We all did. We all had to, one drug or another. And that lingered on for most of us well into our 40s, 50s, and 60s for some of us. But we had pretty much, nobody was doing meth or any other drugs. I guess some of them smoked pot, but he had quit all the drugs and he replaced it with hard alcohol, and it killed him. Another friend of mine who's exactly my age, we used to hitchhike to school together. He's gonna succumb from having drank his whole life. Of all the people in that Southern California culture that I was aware of, went to school with in the wider surrounding area that weren't even really a part of my immediate group, but we knew of them, I would have to estimate that way more than half of them have destroyed their lives, lost their lives, or worse, because of drugs.
Well, you can only imagine what Ireland is like for alcohol then, because we're renowned for the just loving a wee drink, and it's not just loving a wee drink. That's the problem over here. It's just so downplayed, where we have domestic violence coming off the end of it, murders, everything, and it's
terrible.
It is terrible, and the fact that they're so blatant about the naming of it, like calling it spirits, just letting you know that you are inviting spirits into your life, and especially spirits. Anytime I would have drunk like vodka or whiskey, I would have been guaranteed to get arrested.
Wow.
Like I stopped drinking it because I would never have drunk spirits for about maybe the last 10 years because of that reason. It just turned me violent and turned me aggressive for no reason whatsoever, just adversarial to everything.
That there's a whole spiritual side of this, which is almost identical to the schizophrenia argument, where the mainstream to this day has no test to determine schizophrenia. They still will make the call that this is schizophrenia we're looking at with no test whatsoever. Everyone knows how things are treated with drugs or sedatives or however it's going. And then you meet people like the ones I'm interested in, where they say this is a spiritual issue. I'm aware of more than one medical professional who I respect, who's actually interested in trying to cure people, who are now making the claim that every form of addiction is directly related to spirits. And I'm not talking about spirits like the liquor store, although it is the same thing. I'm talking about actual intelligences that we can't see that are playing a role in that addiction. And when you look at things like schizophrenia, you start to learn things like it's almost 100% negative, the voices and what they're trying, always negative. And when you look around the world at things like 9/11, the wars, you begin to realize that a huge percentage of all these negative things that happen are creating negative emotions.
100%.
And if you can recognize that and don't realize that emotion is energy on the etheric level, and you don't realize that there are spirits, there are consciousness that we can't see, then you are providing some kind of energy and all this negative emotion that is, just let me say it this way, it's not going to waste. And we have a number of people who are respected who have covered it. The Monroe Institute is one of them. The Tibetans and their Buddhist religion cover versions of this. The old Nordic traditions covered this. The Cathars covered this. The what's the sect of Christianity that the Vatican knocked out? The Gnostics.
The
Gnostics covered this with the 𝐟𝐿𝐵𝐿 idea, and they're all saying the exact same thing. And at some point, we're going to catch up and recognize that alcoholism is not a disease per se, in the same way, like if I actually got some physical disease in my body, but
that's an excuse. A disease is an excuse. And
right.
In regards to psychology as a whole, just from like a very non-intellectual point of view, I just don't comprehend why people base frameworks on like Freud and Jungian frameworks from broken men. You know, like these men couldn't even order their own lives, yet we're basing the interpretation of ourselves and other people on these broken men's frameworks. You know,
it's accepted. It's nationally accepted fraud. There was a clip going around YouTube not too long ago where a guy parked himself outside of a psychiatry or psychologist psychiatry where they were all coming in, some of the top guys in New York City. And he stopped each one and said, "How many patients have you cured?" And they all said the same thing, "None." And then he went on to ask them, "How do you treat them?" They all said the same thing, "With drugs." And then he asked them, "How do you know what drugs to give?" And they all said the same thing, "We guess, we don't know. We put it, we observe it, then we modify it." And that's where we're at. And so if you consider what I'm saying is even possibly true, this is a spiritual issue.
I'm with you on that 100%.
Then it's holistically just hyper-materialism gone amok, because not only can it not affect the real cause, it's making the real cause worse.
And have you noticed as well the rise in so-called psychological ailments since the rise in awareness about mental health and never shutting up about those two words put together about people's mental health? There's a reason they want to constantly in our consciousness so that we are always introspectively looking instead of just being and, you know, interacting with the world honestly instead of fucking second guessing everything and going, "Oh, what shadow am I interacting with the world with today?" It's so ridiculous. You know, people just have went beyond being accountable to themselves and they're looking externally for validation at all times.
I'm glad you brought that up, because another thing they're doing with the whole mental illness thing is they've turned it into a tool. If they can label you as mentally defective in some way, then they can get you in a position where it doesn't matter what you think or do, because you're not fit to make decisions for you or anyone else. And I see a lot of that in this country. You've got to be so careful that some medical professional doesn't type in that little digital record that never goes away, that you need a psych evaluation, because that's where it starts. And that is an absolute tool that can be used where you don't have any rights anymore, as if you ever did. But
I'm a firm believer that you should order your life in such a way now. Well, this is coming from only being 40 days sober, bear in mind, but order your life in such a way that the world knows, you know, how you interact with it. I'm done bullshitting the interactions with the world. Like, the work gets the same version of me, my wife gets the same version of me, you get the same version as everybody else. You know, I'm done with the pretense, and, you know, people know what I'm about, and there's no question. You know, somebody was to arrive up tomorrow and go, "He's mentally ill" or whatever, people would agree probably with some of my opinions, but you know, enough people know that that's not the case for that to stick. So if you live your life in a correct manner, they can try whatever they want.
Well, I noticed as we kind of ended 2025, everyone has the sense that everything is changing now. And even though for years I've been saying we're going into a new era, and lately I've been saying we're over the threshold now into the new era, we're doing this now, I notice a lot of people breaking addictions, working to better themselves in certain ways, that being a good example. And I think it fits with the era shift, because I think there's going to be a division of people who are not ready for the new reality and people who are just can't get there quick enough. And I think we're going to be split in half, or maybe not equally in half, but I think there's going to be a split in society of those that are ready to go in the new direction and those that are not quite done with what we're leaving behind.
Well, I come at it from a very, like, I'm a Christian, so I do believe it from a biblical standpoint. I don't attend any church whatsoever because I believe it's all institutional rot. The Bible, there's not supposed to be any intermediary between you and your God. And what you're describing there is pretty much what Revelation describes too, and whether the apocalypse is the end of a new year and the start of another, or it's the end of everything. It does very much feel like we're in a transitional period, whether you believe the Bible or whether you don't, you know.
Well, there's, in my mind, there isn't it. Religion and spiritual endeavors are like night and day to me. And religions at this point are mostly corporations. And once you say that word, you should already comprehend what you're talking about. To me, a corporation is an illegitimate excuse to get away with things and not be responsible for it. Not to mention that it's a non-existent idea, an entity that is given the rights of a person.
Yeah.
I think it's just a loophole, and we need to get away from this. Corporation is like a cancer on our society. And what we're seeing now is the biggest corporations are eating every other corporation up that ever existed. Pretty soon, it'll be the Highlander. There can only be one. Maybe it's that way already. Who knows? But at some point, we've got to be back to the idea of the old ma and pa, where, yeah, I built this little place. You're coming in to do business. I'm responsible for this. I try to do the best I can in what I'm providing, and I don't pass the buck. And a corporation makes all those things I just said not possible.
People outsource responsibility, you know, and it's apparent, and that's why we are where we are. And, you know, personally for me, I don't, as I say, I wouldn't attend any institutional church. I wouldn't go to any form of gathering like that, because for me, God just orders my life, and it's my personal thing. I'm not out to try and convert anybody or anything like that, you know. Just live your life accordingly. And
for me, I was raised Christian, and for me, it came to a point when I was, I don't know, 18 or in my upper teens, getting ready to be pretty much an independent adult out in the world doing my own thing. And what struck me was, I go on Sunday and they tell me the same stories over and over and over. And I don't get it. Why are you going to tell me the Sermon on the Mount again? This year alone, I've heard that 5 times. And for one thing, I think there's more to what you're reading that you're not recognizing. And the second thing is, how many times can you tell me the same stories that have a moral lesson in them most of the time? And what I learned later is, when I did dig into it on my own and I started getting other points of view from all over, there is quite a lot more than the surface narrative in the Bible. And
well, we had Gary Wayne on.
Yeah.
You know Gary Wayne? Genesis 6 conspiracy, or?
No, I don't think I do.
So he's the author of Genesis 6 conspiracy, and a biblical scholar. He's what you call a Christian contrarian. He goes deeply into the texts and the genealogy encoded into all of Genesis, and it's intriguing. It's mind blowing. I certainly believing in it is not submitting to non-intellectual thought. You know, it's a very alive book, and it's very
levels
it's
deep.
through the test of time, and there's very it's like an onion. You peel one layer off and you're down to another. It's never
so
ending.
What is his main point? Is he found something with genealogy?
So he's found, he's got two or three books. So the first one just goes through the different creation stories in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, and then the Genesis 6 conspiracy about the Nephilim and the flood and how it was to take out the Nephilim, and then obviously the bloodlines and the divine right to rule that's I'm condensing it into very simplistic terms, but the certainly seems to be the dark forces in this world are certainly playing from the opposite side of the Bible's handbook, leading us towards and all their satanic displays on stage and the music, etc.
They're trying.
So, they're setting the stage that it's true because they're playing out the other side, or the Bible has been true, all along.
Oh, Rose dug up another piece of footage. You ready for some more footage?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, we're going to run a clip called The Exploding Orb, and this is what happened. We'd had a couple days with no chemtrails. One plane went by, and my wife hollered out at me, get the telescope out. The second one came by, and she spotted this thing in the sky. I thought at first it was an orb, like we saw before. It's not.
Yeah.
But I thought it was. I thought I was filming an orb. Turns out the second chem plane dropped this, and you've got to realize I lived in between flight paths to the international airport in San Diego, and I looked at the time I looked up. I don't even think you're allowed to drop so-called weather balloons, but they dropped this out of the second plane, and watch what happens here. As I'm filming this, I couldn't believe I finally had my telescope on an orb, and then it blew up, and I thought, oh, that's not an orb. And that's when we realized that the second airplane dropped this. There's a sensor or something wrapped up inside this with a big long antenna, and all this debris comes out of that thing, and it fell over mile after mile out of houses.
What size would you estimate that to be?
Bigger than I could put my arms around, maybe bigger than two people, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe 5 feet across or something like that. So here's I'm in the middle of this. The object is dropped where the question mark is, and that arrow is pointing at the international airport. So you're not allowed to just let balloons go. So the plane dropped this, but we'll get back. We'll show you what happens with it. I forgot I even made that image. The chem planes, the first chem plane is on the top, and that's when we got out the scope. The second one that dropped the orb is the line on the right. What I think it was they had sensors in it to monitor how their chemtrailing was going, and the device probably said something like, if you find this, call this number or something. But I think it was gathering data. Watch, you won't believe when it happens.
Wow.
It blows up, and there's the device, and there's a little device spinning down there, but there's this long antenna or tether that unfurls from, that was all inside it, not like a weather balloon. A weather balloon's just full of nothing.
Oh, like you can still see like part of the orb out external falling as well. Like that's
you can't really tell, but the amount of debris that came out was stunning because it was falling over houses. And everyone asked, why didn't you go find it? It's impossible. It's mile after mile of housing tracks. You'd never be able to find it.
That's insane. Did you caught that?
Yeah, my wife has sharp eyes. She saw there's an orb, and there's a chemtrail. So I drove the scope up.
Definitely go to
I'm actually filming this through the telescope I filmed the lunar wave with, but I'm doing it by hand because I didn't have time to set up. So I'm actually tracking all this by hand. And there's the device that I think was collecting data.
So, clearly these are, man-made or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not unakin to a weather. Yeah, it's not a weather balloon, but it's in that ballpark.
But it's like a plasma type material. It looks.
No, you can see there's like a normal skin, like all the white stuff above what you're seeing there is the skin of it, like a normal balloon. But it was packed with all this debris and that device.
Yes, like data gathering equipment of some description.
So that little question mark. So there's the airport that's that the hand is over. That's where the airports are, both of them. One's military, one's an international.
How many views is on that video? There's bound to be quite a few.
I'm sorry?
How many views is on the orb
Oh,
exploding?
I'm not even sure, but they've censored me for so long. There's no good view count. I mean, the lunar wave only has 1 million.
That looks like a tree. Looks like a tree in its branches. It literally does look like a branch of a tree from the sky.
I forget what I was saying in this part. It's been so long since I made these. But, and the other thing is, like, I've filmed other weather balloons. They're not perfectly round because there's usually like a string, something hanging off them. This thing's perfectly round and it's packed with some kind of debris and a device and a long antenna, like a whip antenna. Watch when it first blows up. All the white that you see is the skin on the outside of it. See all that?
Okay. Yeah.
But all the rest of that is, all the rest of that is debris. And the video didn't catch. It was so much, I was just stunned. You can hear in the audio, I'm telling my wife, you can't imagine how much stuff's falling down on all those houses. It was all sparkly and shiny, but the video just didn't pick it up very well.
And that's the same telescope still?
Yeah, I was using an 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain, the very same scope that I filmed the lunar wave with. And I tracked that thing falling for as long as I could until the roof of my house blocked me.
That's unreal. And I wonder, obviously this telescope is commercially available. I wonder what is not commercially available.
In terms of telescopes, you mean?
Yeah, for looking at the sky, yeah.
Oh, well, in the 70s, we got really limited because they made IR and UV against the law for military applications only. So all the devices we get now are near RI and near UV. If you can get like a real FLIR camera, it goes a little further in. But yeah, if I could ever get my hands on a real UV or IR camera, man, you could film some things, particularly now with so much in the sky. Like, you had to work at it back then to find things in the sky. Now you don't.
No, they're there all the time, and that's the thing. Everybody's looking down at their phones.
Oh, you can see
nobody's looking up.
You can see the antenna really well going off to the left. Oh, see the sparkly thing down below too? You can see the little beacon light or whatever it is.
Yeah, just falling.
Oh, here's the inverted shot. There's the sparkle down below. And you should, off to the left of the little falling thing, you can see the antenna. There it is, just barely. See it?
Yeah.
It's a line moving away from it.
Have you ever had any wee knocks at your door for any of the stuff you filmed?
Well, back during when I had first released the lunar wave, that's why I had to change everything. Yeah, we ended up locking our gates and everything because, people were trying to find where I lived and everything. It was ridiculous. Just because I filmed something and the moon.
It doesn't fit in with their worldview.
Even after I changed my number, I got calls from people saying, I'm ex-NASA and you won't believe what you just filmed. It went on and on and on.
Well, you're definitely hovering over something that's important.
Well, it got worse too, because a year and a half later, I filmed the only 2 known waves. I filmed it like a year and a half later. And so then half the people were saying I faked it, and they really started screaming again because I was the only person who had filmed it, which wasn't even right. Others had filmed it. They just didn't realize, at least one other person. But now many people have filmed it, and it's been filmed in front of Jupiter and Saturn and the sun.
Wow. That's a real good shot there. That is intriguing. Absolutely intriguing. So all this is available at Crow777radio.com. Is that correct?
Most all of these videos, except for the solar ones, are on YouTube. Some of these, not this one, some of them are on the website in different forms, but on the website, there are 19 member-only solar videos. So this is me showing you how I tracked it, because I had to do it by hand. So I'm showing you how I edited the video. So there by hand, I didn't have any tools. I'm pulling the orb into center frame. So when you watch the video back, it seems stable.
Yeah, yeah. You have a lot more technical abilities than I barely knew how to switch a laptop on when I started the podcast, but that's...
There's a lot easier ways to do this now, but I didn't have any tools then, so I had to do it all by hand.
Well, look, it's been absolutely amazing having you on and sharing this stuff with us. If you would be up for coming on again for another conversation, I'd be more than happy to have you back.
If I'm available, Rose will book me. She keeps the schedule tight, so if I've got time, I'm happy to do it.
It's been great to have a chat with you, and very grounding conversation as well. Even with talking about solar flares. So yeah, really nice to speak to you, and thank you for your time. And I'll include obviously your website and stuff in the description, and send the link through to Rose once it's up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If people want to come over to Crow777 Radio, they can join for $8. I think we're one of the cheapest podcasts. We've been going at it. You have access to every episode we've ever done, and I have everything on a private server. So even the stuff that's been censored from YouTube or anywhere else, it's all on the website. Every episode, even the ones that got censored out of existence. You have access to all the forums, the chats. I should tell you about my movie, Shoot the Moon. It's a 2-hour film covering all my telescope work. It's got 10 awards in the world. The last 2 came from India, Jaipur, India, because Jason put it on the circuit out in the world for, privately made movies. Yeah. And it's really an interesting view. You get free access to that. You get free access to all my solar work, exclusive, like the solar wave. Only my membership is getting it, because when I put the first lunar wave up on YouTube, sometime later, YouTube informed me that they have partial ownership of that footage, and they could use it in a commercial if they want. So I quit putting all my work up on platforms. Yeah, so it's all there. We've got a great community, all the solar work, everything, and I hope to see people as a member. And by the way, when people go back and listen to the early episodes, they're blown away, because they don't hear people talking like that now, because censorship prevents it.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear honest discourse, and as I say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. So it's Crow777radio.com, and membership is $9 per month.
$8.
$8 per month.
US.
Okay, so that's even cheaper for us, guys. So get on it, guys, and like, share, and subscribe, and check out Crow's website. So thank you very much, and hopefully get to speak to you again in the future.
Cheers, Ian. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic remainder of the day here.
Yes, will do. All the best. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Done with casting pearls amongst the swine, 'cause each of us is running out of time. It's already started silent. You won't hear a chime. You'll be measured and punished for each heavenly crime.